Welcome back. We hope you've had a good break. We are now joined by Alex Hassell, who played Henry V, and Jennifer Kirby, who played Katherine, live from the Barbican Theatre, who will be answering your questions that you've been sending in this morning. Now, just so you know, we are live on a video link to the Barbican, so things could possibly go wrong. You know, there might be some glitches, so please bear with us. Anyway, Alex, Jen, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, it worked. It worked.
That's something I've always wanted to say.
How have rehearsals been going, and how has the play been going for you guys so far?
Good, thank you very
really
much.
good. Yeah, we're enjoying ourselves.
We've been in Stratford-upon-Avon, and now we're at the Barbican, which is a very different sort of theatre, but really good.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, so many people have been sending in questions for you today, so should we just rattle through some of them and see how many we can get through in the time?
Yes.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
let's
great.
start from this one here. This is from Millie from Priory School. And Millie asks, how did you create the effect of war on stage? This is to both of you.
Well, that's interesting. We've sort of chosen in our production to try and allow the audience to use their imagination as much as possible. The chorus in the play talks about the audience having to use their imagination all the time. So we've tried to not fill the stage with loads of stuff. So we have swords and armour and that sort of thing, and there are some sound effects, and there's a big boom, which you might have noticed that lots of people jump because they're not expecting. But apart from that, it's kind of trying to engage the audience to imagine a battle, really, I think.
Yes, and I think as actors, it's our responsibility to make sure that we are portraying the war in terms of our emotions and how seriously we take it, because it is literally life and death. So.
Yeah.
Nice, good answers, good answers. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one's from Jack from Ashfield Junior School. And Jack wants to know, how does it feel to portray the role of Harry from the king he was to the king that he actually became?
That's a really very good question, because that's the kind of crux of the play, really, or potentially, from my point of view, the three plays, Henry IV, 1 and 2, and Henry V. He has a huge, huge journey to go on, from being a young man who is perhaps afraid of the responsibility that he has to take on, who is quite reckless, likes getting drunk, likes being with his friends, and doesn't really want to have to lead a whole country, essentially be the Prime Minister and the King and sort of the head of the church. So to try and negotiate myself through being that reckless young person to feeling like he has to go to France, put many thousands of people's lives on the line, and is questioning whether it was the right thing to do morally or not, is a very interesting and difficult thing to portray. I guess the aim is to try and imagine what it would be like to be in that situation. So I try and think, how would I feel if I were having to do that? So it's a really big task. I feel by the end of the play like I've really been through something, I think, is the aim.
Yeah, nice one. It's always good to get an actor's perspective on these kind of things. All right, let's move to the next one from Faye from Thurston Community College. Faye wants to know, and this is for the both of you, how does the director help to guide your performance?
I think what Greg does, and I think what most good directors do, is let actors go with it a bit and figure things out on their own. And of course we have lots of conversations about the characters and about the scenes and everything, and we read through the scenes and the play itself a number of times before we even get up onto our feet, because with Shakespeare it's pretty difficult at first, often, to understand what's going on at all. I mean, actors have as much trouble with that as anybody else. So we make sure that we understand exactly what's going on first, and then we try lots of stuff out. We play around with it, and we just see what we think, where we think the scene should be going, and then he might guide us maybe in a way, and he might say, oh, when you did this it was really good, or when you did this maybe it didn't work so well. But the important thing is that we try lots of stuff out, I think.
Yes, that's right. And the difference, I suppose, between the actor's job and the director's job is that the actor's job is to be subjective, which means that you're trying to tell your character's story from their point of view. You're trying to think how they might think and kind of carve their path through the story, where the director's job is to be objective, which is to look at the whole production and to balance the story elements. So they have a better eye on maybe how all the subjective actors can kind of feed together into this big puzzle, I suppose, which is the story.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Now, this one is from Kirsty from Sholing Technology College. And Kirsten wants to know, in the St. Crispins Day Speech, is it hard to build up the momentum?
Yes, it really is. It's a really, really difficult speech. It's a very, very famous speech. It's the speech that I suppose it feels that most Henry V's are sort of measured by. It's the most famous speech. And it's an incredibly well-crafted speech. But his task is so huge in that he has to get a very small group of soldiers who are very, very scared that they will lose because there are so many French. And it's very, very likely that they will lose, and in fact that they will all die, to somehow rally and be ready to fight even though they are facing near certain death. So the stakes, we talk about stakes a lot, which is sort of the level of importance of what you're doing. The level of importance of this speech is huge, huge.
Couldn't be much higher, could it,
No,
really?
so it is always a bit intimidating to do that speech, but I suppose that's okay because Henry, I think, would be intimidated by having to say such things and to affect such a change in his troops.
Yeah, it's fair to say he's afraid, isn't it? Really?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, yes.
Brilliant. Okay. Now, next one is from Rodri from Penrith College. And Rodri wants to know, does Alex think that Henry was a good king? Actually, I'd give this to both of you.
Well, that's a very good question, I suppose, particularly depending if you're from the French or the English point of view.
Yes, yeah, it changes somewhat.
Yes, yes. I think it really depends. I mean, he is capable, he manages to win, which I suppose is important, but it depends whether you think being going to war, essentially, is a good thing to do or not. I mean, he feels that he has to do that, and he manages to succeed, and he has some humanity about it. But I don't agree with war personally, and therefore wouldn't think that leading a country to war is a good thing. But he certainly has the qualities of good leadership, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think it's important to think, when you're in a play or when you're playing a character like that, you just have to think, what does the character feel? And it's not really about you yourself and what you think, because I would never want anybody to go to war, wouldn't want anyone to die for me, but that wasn't the time and he wasn't that man. So I think you just have to look at it from that perspective, and you can't put your own comments onto a character, really, I don't think. You just have to play truthfully, really, I think.
I suppose the question that is very palpable for us at the moment is the question of God, that Henry believes that God is willing him to do this, and that, of course, these days is a very interesting thing to think about, whether God would want people to go to war or fighting, if that can be something that is religiously positive or not. Makes us think a lot as we're doing the play about the world today, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Okay, awesome. Now, moving on to the next one. Class 8A from Queen Mary's Grammar School ask, what do you think Shakespeare's message is with this play?
Shakespeare's message.
Well, I think partly what I was just talking about, in a way,
Yes,
I wonder.
It feeds quite well from the other question, actually,
Yes.
doesn't it? Because it is a play about war.
Yes.
But I think it's probably too simple to say it's either anti or pro-war.
Yeah.
I think it's just, it's what Greg, our director, says a lot. It's more of a discussion about going to war and these particular men and what their experience was of it in the
Yeah.
play.
I think it's potentially about the cost. I think a message is an interesting word. I'd say maybe what he's exploring is a better thing to think about, because often good writers don't have a clear thing that they want the audience to learn. It's more maybe what they want them to think about or to question. So I think the nature of leadership, the nature of morality, and the nature of sort of being led by God and a man's relationship with God, but I think also the cost of war, that for everyone involved in a war, from the person who is making the decision to go to war, to the people that he is fighting and their loved ones, to the nobles and the sort of higher ranks in the army, to those at the very lowest ranks of the army who will die for a cause that maybe they don't understand. Every single person is in some level morally compromised, I suppose,
Yes.
in a way that is very complex.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's always interesting when an audience sees a play and one person will have a completely different idea of what it was about or what the message was than the person sitting next to them.
Yes.
And I think that's the mark of a really good play, because it's about discussions and it makes you think. It shouldn't just say this is what you must think. It's opening it up, isn't it? It's saying, well, what do you think about this?
Yes.
What do you think about these people? And
That's very true, and there have been productions of this play that have been trying to make a clear message. Laurence Olivier's film, for example, was released around the D-Day landings during the Second World War, and that was very clearly the production was cut and made to make the country feel very patriotic and sort of galvanise around this message of England being great. So there are instances in which Shakespeare, particularly this play, can be sort of co-opted by a political idea, I suppose, but that's not something that we're trying to do.
No.
Okay, awesome. Nice one. Right, we've got quite a lot of questions. I want to see if we can get through all of them if we can in the time allotted.
We'll
Now, this
quicker.
one here is
Sorry,
from
that was a long one.
Jenny from Newsom High School. Great question, actually. Jenny asks, which are the main characteristics of your character that you wanted to portray to the audience? Trying to get into your mind.
Well, I suppose the things that really bounce around my head are determination in what he feels he has to do, a sense of trying to be moral and do the right thing, and I think his fear and doubt. Those three things seem to be the Venn diagram in the middle of is my character somehow.
I think certainly for me, especially in the last scene, it's important for me that I get across just how difficult a position Catherine's in. Her whole family is French. She's part of the French royal family, and suddenly it's very possible that she might be forced to marry this man who she has absolutely no idea who he is or what he's like. He might be the worst husband in the world. So I think it's important for me that it's not an easy decision for her, and just what a potentially awful situation she's in, and the sort of change that happens over the scene. That's really important.
Okay, cool. Next one here is from Leanne from St. Richard Gwyn Catholic High School. And this is slightly contrasting what I've just asked, but she wants to know, what would you change about your character then?
I'd make the armour less uncomfortable. No. Well, I suppose not go to war. Morally, personally, I suppose. But there wouldn't be much story there, would there, I guess?
I think just a couple of performances, not all of them, but maybe, one every 5 performances. I'd like her to say no.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'd just like her to be like, actually, don't fancy it really. Don't really fancy it, but alas.
I'd like Henry to be more handsome.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Okay, I'll buy that one, Alex. I'll buy that one. Anyway, one here from Jasmine. I think Jasmine's home educated. Jennifer, what was it like having to speak French? And did you already know how to speak French in the first place?
No, I didn't. When I knew that I had this part, I took some French lessons. I did a sort of short course in French, and that was mainly to get the pronunciation of the words. And I think that's the most important thing, that I sort of sounded French, and of course that I knew exactly what I was saying in the show. And then once rehearsal started, I also had an accent teacher. So once rehearsal started, we just really worked on it loads and loads and loads. And I don't speak very much French, unfortunately, but I'm still learning. So hopefully I'll be up to Catherine's standard one day.
Nice one. All right, one here from Gary from Bar Beacon School. And Gary wants to know, why did the French send a chest of tennis balls?
Yes, that's good. That's a very good question. I think the idea is that they're suggesting that King Henry, really all he would want to do is play games like tennis or go to the pub, or that he's not serious, that he...
because that was his past, wasn't
yes.
it? He was a real renegade.
Yes, that he would rather be leisurely than be a serious, significant king. And what a mistake they make.
And the Dauphin knows this, and he's sort of using it to say, look, we don't see you as a threat. You're just this, you're just a lad. You're nothing to us.
Yes, that's right.
All right. One here from a student from Dovebank Primary School, and the student wants to know, Why does Henry think he deserves the throne of France?
I mean, that's an incredibly good question. First of all, his father, well, whether he thinks he does deserve it is a very interesting question. His father, his father's dying wishes essentially were that Henry go to France to try and galvanize the country around him, as in get everyone to believe that he should be is a good king and is capable, but also to get them to forget the very turbulent time that his father had as a king. So that's part of the reason that he wants to sort of distract everyone and prove himself and show himself as being strong. But also in those days, or the belief system at that time, they were very religious, and they believed that if you could find, as this is in the Salic law scene, the very complicated scene, if you could find sort of just lineage from yourself to have a direct connection to the throne of France, God actually wanted you to take the throne of France, that it was God's will that he, the English kings, would be the leader of a united France and England to spread peace and Christianity with greater power, because they had more kind of people to do it with. But that's whether he believes, I think he's questioning whether that is a legitimate thing to think or not.
Well, they believe in the play that Henry's right to the throne is stronger than the French royal family, and yes,
but potentially the question is whether or not they've sort of massaged the truth so that they can go to France for their own ends.
Okay, lovely. Now, one here from Caitlin from Heckman-Wick Primary School. Caitlin wants to know, what would you have done if you hadn't won the war? And I actually think it would be interesting to hear from Jen on this as well, actually. So what would your characters have done if they hadn't won the war?
Oh, yes, that's interesting. I wonder, we'll never know. I wonder if Katherine probably would have married somebody French, I imagine. Unfortunately, at the time, that was most of what you could look forward to, really, is marriage. Another French nobleman. Not so. You know what, though? If we're wishing for stuff, she goes off and she becomes like this great. She's like forges her own life.
Yeah, the queen of
the queen of France in her own right. Yeah, that's what we'll say.
I think Henry would probably have been killed. I think he probably would have been deposed by other people in England that felt they had a stronger claim, maybe by his brothers or something.
Yeah.
You know, I think he'd have made such an error in those days, they might have locked him up or killed him even. So the stakes, as we talk about in that scene, are high for him.
All right. All right, next one from Anuska from Shakespeare Primary School. Keeping on trend, the old Shakespeare school. Why do some actors play more than one part?
Good school. Because there's not enough money. Partly because in the old days, the RSC would have 30 or even 40 people in their companies. So the stage would be packed with people. But these days, particularly with arts cuts being as they are, it's very difficult to be able to afford the wages of lots and lots of actors. But also, I think what's good about this production is the way that the chorus says, again, you have to use your imagination.
Yes, yeah.
It makes it exciting for an audience to see the same actor play a number of different parts, I think.
And it's exciting for an actor as well to play lots of different parts and have that opportunity to dip their toe in a lot of different pools.
Yes.
Very diplomatically answered. Carla from Eton College wants to know, how much research do you do to take on the part?
Very good question, and that really depends, doesn't it, on what
really
part you're
depends.
playing. And the question of research is interesting because obviously this story is based on a factual story. King Henry existed and did go to France, and he did marry Princess Katherine. Some of the events in the play are true and are very clearly based on historical facts, and others are not. So the numbers, for example, of the French and English armies being so opposed is perhaps not factually correct.
Yeah.
So Shakespeare is obviously doing something when he changes the story from fact to his own fiction. So it's important when you research to try and look at stuff that is useful to you, that will help you play your part in the play, but sort of not be distracted by the stuff that is potentially not what's in the play.
You can pick and choose the bits that really help you, but first and foremost, you just have to look at the page and what the character is on the page and what they do and what they say. But it is always really interesting.
Yes.
It's always interesting to see what happened to them afterwards. And like, for instance, mine and your character is buried at Westminster Abbey, and so and we've been to see their tombs and things, and that's always really interesting, because you think then you have sort of a link, don't you, with them and with the real people, which probably were nothing like the way that we're portraying them, but it's always really interesting.
That was an amazing thing we got to do. We went to Westminster Abbey and I got to touch Henry V's tomb, and we went into Katherine's chantry that Henry V designed and had built. And around Henry's tomb are all the tombs of his ancestors that I mentioned in the play. So when the bishop says, go to your great-grandsire's tomb, Edward III, and think about your ancestry, I had been there and done that, and so that is in my mind every time he says that. We also learnt a lot about the Battle of Agincourt and the conditions in which it was fought, which were horrendous, absolutely unimaginably horrific. So that really helps to remember what people went through, and to try and honour, I suppose, by the seriousness with which you play the play, the loss of life and the horrendous conditions.
Okay, awesome. Okay, now let's try and rattle through as many more as we can right now. We've got Emma here from Highland School, and Emma basically asks, do you ever find you use Shakespearean language in your everyday speech by accident? It's got to be like you, right?
I often say there's a method in my madness or something like that. That's a good one.
Yes. I don't know, I probably do. We all do, don't we, really?
But we don't really know that we do.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Apparently Shakespeare made up the word elbow. Yeah.
Well, then we all do.
So we all do.
Very, very,
all
very
the time.
frequently.
Can we say it the way you said? Elbow. Elbow. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to Tyra from Croydon Further Education College. Tyra asks, given how many times in a week that you perform the play, how do you keep it exciting and fresh? It's a very good question, actually.
That's a very good question for exactly this moment now. We've been playing the play for maybe 10 weeks. And it's that's a sort of thing that happens at some point, is that you start to or your emotional connection, because it's very hard if you're trying to emotionally engage with something as sort of huge as this, to be able to keep those channels open, I guess. But I suppose you try and listen to the other people and
try
really
and hear
respond
things freshly each night. It's very difficult because you obviously know what's coming, but it's nice to just sort of tune in with the other person, especially in our last scene. I tend to find I just have to put my focus onto you and just see what happens, really. And if that's different, then that's great than the night before, but if not, then that's also great. It's sort of it's just being as much in the moment as you can be.
Right. Sort of trying to be awake in that, today I'm a different person than I was yesterday, so different things will roll around my head, and to allow that to happen and to give you surprises that were unexpected.
Okay, awesome. One here from Tyler from Clifton Primary School says, who is your favourite character and why? I guess except for the characters you play, really.
Except our character. I love the chorus's language. The chorus as a character maybe is kind of a standalone character, isn't he? But the language is absolutely amazing. The travelling of the English army to over the Channel, I think, is some of the most wonderful writing.
Yeah, I think Llewellyn for me is really heartwarming, and I think he is such an amazingly constructed character within the play, and just leaps off the page the second that you see him, and you know exactly who this man is, and also brilliantly played as well by Josh. But it's it just really he feels like a real person to me, like I could know him.
You didn't
similarly,
say me, if I may say.
Well,
but I mean, that's okay. We can move on.
Okay, similarly, Marcus from Dreaming Spires Home Learning would like to know if you could choose any other part in the play, who and which one would you choose?
To play? Wow.
Yeah, to play.
Wow, that's good.
Oh.
I think, Llewellyn, because it's really difficult.
Great. Yeah.
Or the chorus,
Yeah. Jamie, the Scottish captain.
I'd have a crack at playing the Queen Isabel, I'd
Queen
say.
Isabel, come in with your crown.
Give him a robe, give him a wig.
I want to
We're
keep
up
it
for that. Okay, here there's a student from Ectonbrook Primary School, and this is actually about other Shakespeare plays. If you could live the rest of your life in one Shakespeare play, which one would it be? Interesting.
Wow, a comedy, definitely.
Yes, definitely a comedy, not Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, exactly. Probably, I don't know. Comedy
I
of
like
errors.
Twelfth Night.
Twelfth Night,
Everybody,
maybe. Although
everybody comes
they're
out
all
pretty
in
good
mourning.
apart from what's his chops.
At the end, maybe, if it were the end of like Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah, like lovely.
From
Everybody's
there on,
happy, romantic niceness, like to dress as a man. That'd be good.
Okay, good way to end it. Kaya from Milton St John's Church of England Primary School says, how long does it take to learn your lines?
Oh,
well,
depends.
it depends, yes. It's interesting. Henry is in verse and prose. So Shakespeare's plays are written either in verse, usually in iambic pentameter, or in prose, which is like a novel is written in prose. Most things are written in prose apart from poetry or Shakespeare's verse. Verse is much easier to learn, partly because it was written so that you can learn it very quickly. In Shakespeare's day, they would have like a week or even just days to learn the whole of Henry V. So it's written in a way to help prompt your memory. The prose stuff is much, much harder because it's sort of all over the place. So I learned the majority of Henry V in a week or two, actually, because, I mean, then I forgot all of it and had to learn it again, but it depends.
Pretty quick at learning lines generally, but I found learning the French very difficult because obviously it's not my first language. So that was really, really tough, and sort of also the sounds and getting the pronunciation right and everything. It took a little while for me. Yeah.
All right. Next one's from Scarlett Morgan and Daisy from Langtree. How long does it take to get your hair and makeup ready? Just a figure from two of you.
No time for me.
No time at all. Well, we have great hair people, and so my hair takes probably about 20 minutes for the first scene, and then for the last scene they put it up really quickly, and then the hat takes a couple of minutes, but they're really good at it. They're really swift. So luckily, I don't have to do much. I just have to kind of stand there. So that's good.
Okay.
I start just like me, and then I get dabbed by mud and blood all the time as we go.
All right. Callum and Olivia from Springhead Primary School want to know, did Katherine really love Henry, or did she do her duty as a princess by marrying him?
Oh, wow. Really good
Controversial.
question. I think, well, it all very much depends on the individual's response to it and the different people that have played Katherine over the years. I think love is a very strong word. However, I do think, for me, I think she makes a shift in the scene, which is from kind of fear and maybe a little bit of hatred as well, to something where it's like, oh, actually, this person might not be as bad as I thought they would be, which doesn't sound too drastic, but it's a huge leap from somebody who you think might be your worst enemy, you know. So I think that's the most important thing for her. It's not love. It's not sort of overly romantic love, but definitely that there's hope. There's hope at the end.
We agree to kind of really try, don't we?
Yes, really try. Yeah.
Okay, our final question, because we've got to wrap this up early. I know you guys have got stuff to do. One here from Alfie from Western Fayville Church of England Primary School, and a good one to end it on, actually. Why do you think Shakespeare put in so much humour in a play about war?
That is an excellent question. I think part of it is because I suppose the play would be very, very, very heavy if it was just all serious stuff. But also Shakespeare frequently puts in comedy in all of his plays very close to the very serious, tragic parts in a way I think is to sort of open the audience up so you're laughing and you feel relaxed and open, and then he kind of punches you in the gut with something surprisingly serious so that you feel a physical response in a way.
Yeah, just the same as like when you've had your dinner and then you have pudding, you sort of it's tastier, isn't it, after you've had something else? So the humour, go with me here. It's tastier when it's counterbalanced by the other. So I think that's why they're sort of juxtaposed in that way. You feel them more.
Amazing. Well, guys, that's all the questions we have got time for. Thank you so much for your time, Alex and Jen.
Thank
you
you
have
very
been
much. Thank you
amazing.
all for watching
Good luck
too.
with the rest of the performance and all that, and see you soon, hopefully, yeah?
Thank you.
All right, guys,
Take
see you in a
care.
bit.
Thank you for everyone.
Bye.
Okay, and if you didn't get your questions answered, we'll speak to the actors and email you your answers as soon as we can. Well, that's all we have got time for today. We want to say a huge thank you to the hundreds of schools and thousands of students from all across the UK who have tuned in to the production and our event today. And a thank you as well to Alex, Katherine and Owen, who have been great with us. And if you want to carry on the discussion, please email RSC at schoolsbroadcast@rsc.org.uk or head over to Twitter after school using the hashtag RSCHenry5 and tell us your thoughts. So that is it from us. Have a good day. See you very soon, and we really hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Peace and love. Bye-bye.